Krásný dobrý den. Today I am going to show you two words that we use very often in Czech. We're going to practice the use of TOHO and JICH. They're both pronouns. They both are in the genitive form. And sometimes you would think that these words are empty of content. For example, here, take a look. Máš hodně kabelek. You have a lot of handbags. Kolik jich vlastně máš? How many do you have anyway? Kolik jich? How many do you have anyways? Kolik jich vlastně máš? Let's see. Kolik corresponds to how many. Vlastně means anyway. Máš, in this case, do you have. How many do you have anyway? So what is jich? Why is it there? Can we just leave it out? Kolik vlastně máš? It would not sound complete. Jich means of them in this context. So what we're asking actually, how many of them do you have? Because we previously talked about something specific. We talked about handbags. Máš hodně kabelek. Kabelek, it's genitive plural. Kolik kabelek vlastně máš? We could also add it here. How many handbags do you have? So even if we want to leave out, we cannot leave it out. We have to replace it with this pronoun. We have to say of them. How many of them? Kolik jich vlastně máš? And it would be in this order. Jich would go to the second position. Kolik jich vlastně máš? The same thing happens with TOHO, except TOHO is used with something not defined. I'll show you some examples. Ahoj, vítejte na mém kanále Czech by Zuzka, kde vám pomocí angličtiny vysvětluju českou gramatiku. We are going to start with TOHO. TOHO means of it. We could translate it as of it. It's undefined and it's often uncountable. So when we speak about something that we have an item which we didn't really name, we didn't say what it is. We know what it is, but we didn't speak about it previously. It's often abstract, or it's not that easy to determine what the gender is, for example. This sentence is very typical. When you're busy, you could say, mám toho hodně. Mám toho hodně. I have a lot of it, literally. You could also say, I have a lot on my plate right now. Mám toho hodně. When you're busy, you can use this sentence, which can also mean that you literally have a lot of something. You're not saying what, you just say, I have a lot of it. In Czech, you have to say mám toho hodně, not just mám hodně. For example, you brought a bag full of things, all kinds of things. So you could say, podívej, mám toho hodně. Look, I have a lot. I have a lot of it. Or like I said, when you're busy, you could say, tenhle týden nemůžu, mám toho fakt hodně. Zbývá toho víc. Zbývá toho víc. There's more of it left. Zbývat is a verb we talked about last week. Zbývá toho víc. There's more of it left. Before we see more sentences, I want to show you why we're using the genitive case. It's not just random. You might be asking, how do I know that I have to use it there? There are certain keywords in the sentences that would tell us we need the genitive case. The first one says, mám toho hodně. Hodně is the keyword that requires the genitive case. If you had something specific, you said, for example, I have a lot of work. Mám hodně práce. Mám hodně práce. Práce would be in the genitive form. It would be a specific noun. But if you say, I have a lot of the work, but you're not saying the word work, you just mean of it, of all these things, then you say toho, and it goes to the second position. You cannot say, mám hodně toho. Mám toho hodně. The same here. Zbývá toho víc. Víc or více is the key word for the genitive case. Zbývá toho víc. You could say, zbývá víc věcí. There are more things left. Let's see this sentence. Pošlete toho víc. The same thing. Send more of it. Send more of it. Our key word is víc. All these quantifiers go with the genitive case. Koupili jste toho málo. You bought too little of it. The key word is málo. Another quantifier. Kolik tam toho mám dát? How much of it should I put in there? Kolik tam toho mám dát? Kolik tam toho mám dát? It would not be a disaster if you say kolik toho tam mám dát. It's actually also acceptable. I would think this is more common. Kolik tam toho mám dát? And where's the key word, you ask? Kolik. Kolik is the key word for the genitive case. Kolik mouky. How much of flour? How much flour? Kolik mouky. But you could also be very vague and say kolik tam toho, how much of it, of this thing, should I put in there? And the last one, dej tam toho míň. Put less of it in there. Dej tam toho míň. And again, you could also say dej toho tam míň. But I like this one more. Dej tam toho míň. What is our key word for the genitive case? Míň, less. Míň is informal. We also have méně, which is formal. If at this point you think that it's a very strange idea of using toho here, don't think about it. Just learn the sentences. Let's read them together. Mám toho hodně. Zbývá toho víc. Pošlete toho víc. Koupili jste toho málo. Kolik tam toho mám dát? Dej tam toho míň. In some of these sentences, if you leave out toho, it's also understandable. Kolik tam mám dát? Acceptable. Dej tam míň. Also okay. This would appear with verbs that would require some kind of object. That you have something, you put something, you have something left, you bought something. And then when you say how much of it you have, like hodně, a lot, víc, more, málo, little, míň, less, then you need the genitive case. Either in singular when it's something undefined or uncountable, or plural when it's something we can count. And we're going to see that right now. Now, how do we know that we should use jich rather than toho? It's easy. Jich is translated as of them, and it's plural, and it refers to something specific, unlike toho. So we need to know what is it that we are replacing. For instance, if you say mám jich hodně, you know that you previously mentioned or you are pointing at the word kabelky. Kabelek. Mám hodně kabelek. I have a lot of handbags. I have a lot of them. Mám jich hodně. Which, by the way, is not true for me. I don't really use handbags. Moc jich nemám. I don't have many of them. Moc jich nemám. The same would go for this sentence. I'm not gonna write it here. Zbývá jich víc. You can say zbývá jich víc when you know that you are referring to something specific in plural. There are more of them left. For example, you're moving and you have boxes. Zbývá jich víc. Krabic, for example. Krabic. For example, you bring 2 boxes. Tady jsou 2 krabice, ale zbývá jich víc. Je jich ještě víc. There's more of them left. Pošlete jich víc. This is actually something I just heard on the radio. They were saying, send more of the pictures. They were talking about pictures, photos, and then they said, send more of them if you have more. Not just one. Pošlete jich víc. Pošlete víc fotek. Koupili jste jich málo. This is what you can say if you know you're referring to something specific in plural. For example, brambory. You bought too few of them. Too few potatoes. Notice you would also say too few of them, and here we said you bought too little of it. This is uncountable. This is countable. Because it's in plural, you can naturally count it. Kolik jich tam mám dát? Kolik jich tam mám dát? Here, curiously, it would sound better to put jich right here. Actually, it would be wrong to say kolik tam jich mám dát. Kolik jich tam mám dát? Jich really fights for the second position. Imagine you're cooking and you want to put some chili peppers. So you ask, kolik jich tam mám dát? Kolik tam mám dát těch papriček? So how many of them should I put in there? Not how much, but how many in this case. Kolik jich. Dej jich tam míň. The same position. Dej jich tam míň. Put fewer of them there. Not less, but fewer in English. Dej jich tam míň. Dej jich tam míň when you say it quickly. That's all I wanted to share with you. Let's read the sentences with jich as well. Mám jich hodně. Zbývá jich víc. Pošlete jich víc. Koupili jste jich málo. Kolik jich tam mám dát? Dej jich tam míň. Remember, toho and jich are both genitive. Toho is not specified. We talk about something not defined of it. Jich is specific. It's plural because it means of them. And watch out for those keywords. If you want to learn about the genitive case and all the cases, you'll find the information you need in my ebook just in case. For example, here, these are the keywords typical for the genitive case. And I want to show you one phrase that's pretty typical in informal Czech, and it doesn't contain those keywords that I talked about. When you're shocked or surprised that there is a big quantity of something, you can say, oh, toho teda je, or jich teda je. Toho teda je, that's a lot of it. Jich teda je, that's a lot of them. So, where is that keyword? It was here, but we left it out. Toho je teda hodně. There's a lot of it. But in informal Czech, in this sentence, we like to leave it out. Toho teda je. I hope you're not saying that after seeing all this information that I just showed you. It's very useful information. Now let's practice it in an exercise. And now it's time for a quick exercise. You will simply complete the sentences with the form toho or jich. Pause the video and check with me when you're ready. Tak zkontrolujeme. Číslo 1. Kolik toho ještě je? Kolik toho? How much of it? Číslo 2. Objednali jsme jich dost? Jich as in them, so we mean something specific. Something that we mentioned before, we counted. Číslo 3. Už jich mám dost. I've had enough of them already. You could say, už jich mám dost when you refer to something specific, for example, neighbors or colleagues. Už jich mám dost. Číslo 4. Koupili jsme jich 8. Koupili jsme jich 8. Because 8 requires the genitive form. Koupili jsme jich 8. Číslo 5. Chceš toho víc? Chceš toho víc? I'm sure you did great. Remember these sentences because they are really useful. Remember how to use toho and jich. Great job. I'll see you next week. Remember that if you need to brush up on the cases, you can do it with my ebook just in case. You can learn, for example, the genitive case step by step. And you can also study nouns in context with my newest ebook. For example, imagine you want to practice the word hodina. So you take a look at it here. It's pretty frequent, number 28. You can see the different forms of hodina. This is the genitive, singular and plural, hodiny and hodin. You see it here used in context. And then you can practice hodina and 9 other nouns from that section in these exercises. Mějte se krásně, děkuji, že jste se dívali. Ahoj!